In the second of two programmes, we learn some tricks of the trade as pirate vessels hide their identity behind flags of convenience and see how illegally caught fish are smuggled into Europe. Earth Report on BBC World News.
The United Nations estimates half the world's fisheries are overfished. The activities of unlicensed trawlers adds to the crisis.
The problem of illegal fishing is enormously widespread. We've had estimates that assess the problem at around 20% of the global catch.
Illegal trawlers typically don't respect breeding grounds, pay no license fees, and ignore fishing quotas.
Tell him it is very good for him now to do whatever we want.
This fishing vessel is under arrest for fishing without a license.
Today, Earth Report investigates fishing off the west coast of Africa.
Nobody would want to be stuck on this boat.
And examines claims that millions of dollars of illegally caught fish are smuggled into Europe. Trawlers have been flocking to the coast of West Africa, one of the world's richest fishing grounds. They've come from most major fishing nations in the world, competing to supply a seemingly insatiable global demand for fish. Some are legitimate, but officials estimate up to 50% may not be.
In 2005, there were 1,200 large-scale fishing vessels registered in the 14 largest flag of convenience countries. A detailed search discovered that there's about 1,000 vessels that we don't know where they are, we don't know where they're fishing. That means they must be fishing illegally.
Over the course of a month, environmental campaigners set out to learn more about some of the tactics used in this illegal trade. The law of the sea states every fishing vessel must clearly display its name. But dozens of vessels don't. When this vessel was first spotted, it was called the Run 13. But 2 days later, the number had been rubbed out and a new name painted on the bridge, the Run 24. This vessel was on the list of trawlers licensed to fish in these waters. Or was it? Several hours later, the Run 24 was spotted again. But it was clearly a different boat.
Well, there are many games played by these pirate vessels, so any patrol flight will not be able to tell who they are.
Helene Boers is a fisheries expert who, at the time, was working for the Environmental Justice Foundation. She's been tracking what she calls pirate vessels for 20 years.
I was flying with the official regional surveillance flight. You have sometimes cases of two vessels with the same name. Vessels using one name when fishing in Guinean waters and another name when they go to Las Palmas. So there's no way you can track the activities of those vessels because you simply don't know exactly who they are and what their name is, let alone who owns the vessels.
Licenses are issued to each boat, but in this chaotic situation, they become meaningless. To make matters worse, the maritime nations of the world have handed the illegal fishing fleets a legal system that virtually guarantees their anonymity.
This is Las Palmas Port Control.
Under international law, every vessel must fly a national flag that clearly identifies it to port authorities. The same law says any country can sell the right to fly its flag. It's called a flag of convenience. Problems arise when countries sell this right but ignore the obligations that go with it.
The problem is that some countries that offer flags of convenience do not monitor the fishing boats that are flagged to them. They have no idea where they are, they have no idea where they're operating, they possibly have no idea who is even operating them. There's very little transparency. It can be very, very difficult indeed to trace the ownership and control structures of vessels that are flying flags of convenience. "16 nautical miles off the coast of Guinea, an extraordinary vision in the most unlikely of places. It was a graveyard of abandoned trawlers, or at least that's how it appeared. But far from it. Each hulk had 1 or 2 Chinese crew on board waiting to play their part. In a world where boats are expected to fish 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, these were backup vessels, ships waiting to be cannibalized for spare parts. Meanwhile, they offered temporary accommodation for backup crews. Many had no idea how long they would be on board.
Some of them are at sea for 2 years without ever going back to land. They don't know when they're going to be paid or how much they're going to be paid.
Every 3 months, new supplies would arrive. Xu Quinn was the first mate. With a broken ship's engine, he was not happy.
Nobody would want to be stuck on this boat.
He had no safety gear, no way to contact the outside world. Xu Quinn did not even know how much he would be paid, perhaps about $3,000 a year. Getting home to his wife and small daughter, who he had only seen twice in 5 years, seemed a distant dream.
One of them had this little raft that he could go onto the next vessel, visit his neighbors.
These are small fry, pawns in a multi-million-dollar game.
Actually, there are cases documented of some of these vessels simply sinking with all the crew, and nobody's held accountable for it, and another vessel with another crew comes and takes its place.
Since September 11, 2001, the International Maritime Organization has put in place a huge range of security measures for merchant vessels. There's no such regulation for fishing vessels. That means they can operate under the radar, almost with impunity. And as such, they represent not only a threat to fish stocks, but frankly also a security threat in this day and age.
In a world increasingly concerned about security, the pirates have also discovered routes to smuggle their illegally caught fish into one of the most lucrative markets in the world, Europe. The illegal fishing industry is well organised and well supported, but it's got to sell its products. Early one morning, a Greenpeace reconnaissance helicopter spied a cluster of vessels far offshore. There were 2 trawlers in the cluster, but neither of them was fishing. Instead, they were tied up to a refrigerated cargo ship, the Binar 4. Were they transferring fish to the freezer ship? Had the catch come from Guinean waters?
According to Guinean sources, the fish on board Binar 4 was originating from Guinea, but also from Guinea-Bissau and possibly Senegal. So the vessel was transshipping all along the West African coast collecting fish.